Today, I'm recommending a very creative crime mystery film. When I opened it, I thought the file was broken. But actually, the whole film is told through a computer screen format. It reminds people of last year's national sensation, a missing teen case. The film's endless twists are truly thought-provoking. The story takes place in San Jose, California. The protagonist, David, has a happy family. From the birth of his daughter Margot to her growing up, every single frame captures their happiness. But joyful days never last long. One day, his wife is diagnosed with cancer. This brings massive changes to their peaceful life. Eventually, Margot's mother passes away. On Margot's first day of high school, there are only David and Margot in the family photo. As time goes on, Margot gradually adapts to the new life. Her personality also changes drastically. David frequently calls to check on her. He worries she might pick up bad habits. But Margot never talks back. She always reports her whereabouts after school. She says she's studying at a classmate's house. David then asks when she'll be back. He wants to know what time she'll return. Just after hanging up with Margot, his brother Peter calls. He wants to ask about the recipe for pickled okra rice. Before David can speak, he notices snacks on the table. After scolding Peter a bit, Peter quickly tidies up the living room. Then the topic shifts to Margot. This makes David feel uneasy. Seeing his brother hesitating to speak, David feels like something is being hidden from him. The date is Thursday, May 11, 2017. Late that night, Margot makes a late-night phone call. But David was fast asleep and didn't hear it at all. This led to him losing contact with his daughter. The next morning at 7 a.m., she was unreachable. David saw a missed call. He quickly tried to call his daughter back. He also sent a few texts, but got no reply. The last message was sent at 3:27 a.m. Seeing no response from his daughter, David couldn't concentrate on work at all. He kept switching between chats to calm himself down. Then he realized it was Friday. Margot should be at her piano lesson after school, so he hurried to find the teacher's number and called right away. But the teacher told David that Margot hadn't come to piano class for 6 months. This left David utterly confused. He checked their chat history and clearly saw all the piano tuition transfers each week. They had even discussed piano lessons just last week. His daughter had lied. Thinking of the missed call from last night, David suddenly had a bad feeling. He sent a few messages asking his brother for help, but his brother suggested she may have skipped class to hang out. He could try asking Margot's friends. Hearing this, David was stunned. He suddenly realized he didn't even know a single one of her friends. Fortunately, his wife had once made a contact book. There was a list of all parents' numbers in a memo. The first classmate was Nelson. He was Margot's study partner. The second one was Robert. Someone in his family worked as a police officer. He had liked Margot since they were little. The third was Isaac, Margot's best friend. So David called Isaac's parents. They said their son had invited friends to go camping. They said maybe Margot was with them on the trip. Once their son returned from camping, they'd have him get back to David right away. Hearing this, David felt a bit relieved, but deep down, he still couldn't relax. On the second day of his daughter's disappearance, Isaac finally called back. He said Margot didn't go camping with them, and he had no idea where she went. Hearing that, David panicked. Where exactly did his daughter go? In a panic, he quickly dialed the police. At this point, Margot had been missing for 30 hours. David looked up local case-solving rates online. When he saw the success rate was just 50%, he was nearly on the verge of collapse. Just then, a phone call came in. Suddenly, the phone rang. The caller said she was assigned by the police to take on the case. She then asked David for all the details he had. With doubts in mind, David talked on the phone. While looking up info about this, Vic, turns out, Vic was indeed a real detective, and even founded a criminal rehabilitation center. She had helped many former offenders start new lives. All signs showed that Vic was a good cop. Seeing that, David put his doubts to rest. He quickly briefed her on the basic situation. Then David noticed something important. His daughter's laptop was left at home. He opened the laptop, opened her contact list. By checking the basic info of each friend, David compiled photos and data into a document. Then he began calling them one by one in order. But he didn't get any useful information. Still, he learned the truth about his daughter. Turns out Margot's life was quite miserable. At school, she was extremely withdrawn. She didn't even have a single friend at school. At this moment, David felt not just sorrow for his daughter, but overwhelming guilt over his failure as a father. He began to retrace the details before her disappearance. David remembered their last call was when she was at a classmate's house, so he checked the school's project schedule. Soon, he learned she had gone to her study partner Nelson's house. Nelson confirmed Margot had been at his place, but she left around 9 p.m. David asked how Margot seemed, but Nelson replied, "How would I know? If so, why did you invite her over? What kind of shallow classmates are these?" David was speechless. At this point, David had contacted everyone connected to Margot, but no one knew where she had gone. She had vanished like thin air. All leads had gone cold. Just then, Detective Vic sent over a surveillance clip. The footage showed Margot filling up gas after 9 p.m. on Thursday. Then she drove out of the city. She was last seen on a highway in the suburbs. Why would she head to the suburbs instead of home? What was her reason? On the third day of Margot's disappearance, David went through his chat history with her. Then it struck him, if she'd quit piano lessons, where had all that weekly money gone? He opened the online banking app to check transactions. He found that Margot had been saving the money. Just a few days ago, she transferred $2,500 to someone, but that person's account had already been deleted. David was stunned. Could his daughter have been scammed? Just then, Vic sent the latest update. The email revealed a fake identity Margot had used. It said they discovered this during the investigation. Margot had once created a fake identity, then transferred the $2,500 to herself. After withdrawing the money, she deleted the fake identity. David said that didn't make sense at all. Was his daughter trying to launder money? Who launders just $2,500? Vic said there had been similar cases in the US. Some did it to clean funds gained illegally. She suspected Margot had planned this ahead of time and chose to run away from home. But David believed he knew his daughter. No matter what, Margot would never choose to run away. When closing the browser, he noticed the browsing history. He saw records of a livestream website. It turned out Margot had been streaming a lot there. The lonely girl had chosen to pour her heart out to strangers online. She even had a loyal fan named Fries. That fan claimed to be named Hannah. She came from a poor family, had to work at a restaurant while attending school. And now, her mother was suddenly diagnosed with cancer. Their tough life became even harder. Margot seemed reminded of her own mother. She expressed sympathy for Hannah's situation. David analyzed this Hannah character. He had a strong feeling she was connected to Margot's disappearance, so he asked Vic to help verify her identity. The verification came quickly. Hannah was indeed a waitress, but she had an alibi for the night of the incident. All other info confirmed she wasn't a suspect. Hearing that, David was deeply discouraged. Another lead ended in disappointment. Feeling hopeless, David tried to shut down and rest. But then he noticed a lakeside video Margot once recorded. That lake had appeared multiple times on her social posts. Could that lake be a hidden clue? Using keywords Margot had used on her profile, he traced it to Lake Barbosa in the suburbs. The place where Margot vanished was only 4 miles from this lake. Could it be that Margot went there? David had a strong gut feeling this was a major clue. He didn't care that it was already late at night. He immediately decided to head to the location. At exactly 4:22 a.m., he arrived. David called Vic on the phone. "Hey. Where are you?" "She didn't just run away." "Vic, are you at the lake?" David said he had found his daughter's keychain, which meant she had definitely been there. On the 4th day of Margot's disappearance, police found a car in the lake. The moment Margot's car was pulled out, David's heart was in his throat. But Margot wasn't inside the car. However, there were clear signs of a struggle. Vic updated the public on the progress of the case. The missing person case was officially classified as a kidnapping. Major media outlets swarmed in for coverage. Soon, volunteer search and rescue teams arrived. Many more joined the search spontaneously. They prepared to conduct a thorough sweep around the lake. But then a heavy rainstorm began suddenly. Rescue efforts had to be halted. As the case gained more attention, Margot's social media accounts gained a flood of followers. The incident shot to the top of the trending topics. Someone in the comments claimed that David was the culprit. Once that was said, many others followed with similar accusations. Suddenly, no one cared about the search anymore. It all turned into a meaningless argument. Ironically, Margot's so-called classmates, Nelson tearfully recorded a DV tribute. Netizens hailed her as the embodiment of true friendship. David was stunned by the sudden shift. He never expected such ugliness in human nature. He composed himself and continued investigating. Then he saw a user posting online just for attention, claiming Margot was actually a prostitute. Already furious, David couldn't hold back anymore. Someone recorded the outburst and uploaded it. Even more clueless people jumped in to stir chaos. Vic found out and called David immediately. She warned him to stop investigating on his own. Keeping calm was the top priority now. David was mentally and physically exhausted from the chaos online. He was shocked at how things had spiraled this way. Just then, an email notification popped up and startled him. It turned out to be a funeral live streaming service ad. He was disgusted. These people were sick. His daughter was only missing, not dead. David went back online, searching for any clues. He hoped to find even the smallest lead. Then a piece of clothing from the car caught his eye. Upon closer inspection, it was his brother's favorite jersey. He quickly checked the chat history between his daughter and brother. What he found completely shattered his worldview. Their recent chats were extremely explicit, and they often met late at night. The thought of it made David's head feel like it was going to explode. Could his brother be involved in Margot's disappearance? With that doubt, he went to his brother's place and secretly installed a few cameras once inside. No unnecessary talk. David directly confronted him about his relationship with Margot. David couldn't take it anymore and exploded. "What did you do to her?" Faced with his brother's shouting, his brother couldn't take the pressure and confessed everything. It turned out Margot had often bought snacks from him. They sometimes smoked weed together, but nothing more than that. While David was still in shock, his brother turned around and scolded him instead. He said David had ignored Margot's growth and never truly understood his daughter. The reason Margot stopped going to piano lessons was because she was afraid of being reminded of her mother. Hearing that, David suddenly understood everything. Turns out his silence was a kind of avoidance. That's what caused Margot to grow increasingly withdrawn. At that moment, Vic called. She said the police had caught the suspect and confirmed Margot had been murdered. They confirmed she was dead. The confession came from a video posted online by the killer. "Little girl in the car. I'm sorry I killed you. I'm truly sorry for taking your life." On the 5th day of Margot's disappearance, the police held a press conference and announced that the man in the confession video was the kidnapper. They confirmed he admitted to kidnapping Margot, based on evidence gathered around the lake, including DNA found at the scene. It matched the suspects. The case of Margot's disappearance was declared closed. But David felt many things still didn't add up. Not even the body had been recovered. But he had to accept what seemed like the truth. Since things had come to this, he opened the funeral service ad he'd received and sent over Margot's photos and tribute videos, hoping to at least give her a proper farewell, hoping to do the last thing right as her father. David was about to close the browser window, but then a photo in the funeral service's ad caught his attention. The girl in the ad looked strangely familiar. He compared it carefully with Margot's old pictures. Then he found something suspicious on the livestream site. Wasn't that the same person who had once chatted with Margot as Fries? The girl who claimed to be a waitress named Hannah? What the hell was going on? David urgently began reverse image searching the photos. He soon found out that Hannah was no waitress at all. She was actually a professional model. Through the funeral company, he obtained Hannah's phone number. When he called, the woman had never heard of his daughter. She obviously had never been a waitress or done anything related. Detective Vic had lied. Furious, David tried calling Vic to confront her, but he couldn't reach her at all. So he contacted the police department and unintentionally discovered something shocking. Vic had volunteered herself to handle this case. She was never officially assigned by the department. Why would Vic do something like this? Could she have something to do with Margot's disappearance? The more David thought, the more terrifying it seemed. He reinvestigated Vic's background online and soon uncovered a horrifying truth. In one of the group photos from her rehab program, the confessed killer was actually in it. All the answers were now obvious. Vic was definitely connected to Margot's disappearance. Ironically, when police and David went to arrest Vic, she was attending Margot's memorial. Once arrested, Vic didn't hide anything. She confessed and recounted the entire story. She had a son named Robert. He had secretly had a crush on his classmate Margot since childhood, so he knew all her interests and habits. To pursue the girl he liked, Robert went online under the alias Fries. He posed as a girl named Hannah and made up a story. After gaining her trust, he unexpectedly received $2,500 from Margot. Robert realized things had gotten out of control, so he arranged to meet Margot on Thursday night to confess. but Margot showed up at a canyon to smoke weed. There, Robert got into an argument with her. Margot, frustrated, called her father for help. In a panic, Robert tried to grab her phone. That's when things spiraled into tragedy. To protect her son from being blamed, Vic pushed Margot's car into the lake. Then she waited quietly for David to report the incident. Once David called the police, she immediately contacted the station and volunteered to take the case. Then she faked evidence and testimonies and misled David's investigation. She made him believe Margot had run away. But when David discovered Lake Barbosa, Vic panicked that night. She was afraid David would find more clues and realize the truth, so she staged a fake confession video from a guilty killer. Meanwhile, police took David to the canyon where Margot had fallen. Since nearly 5 days had passed, they feared she wouldn't survive without food or water. But David firmly believed his daughter was still alive. And luckily, she was. The rescue team found Margot alive in the canyon. Turns out it was yesterday's heavy rain that saved her. David celebrated her miraculous survival. They both finally smiled again. Margot re-enrolled in piano lessons. Everything returned to how it once was beautiful. David could finally rest and peacefully shut down his computer.